optimism is a hope that things can be better? Is it an assertion that things are going to be? No, but they don't become better unless you give them an opportunity to become better. Plants don't grow unless you give them an opportunity to grow. If you put a plant in a room and then you make it all dark and you fill it with nothing but darkness and then it never grows, we sit there and go, see, that's why I don't trust plants. No. If you put a plant in with plenty of sunlight and plenty of water and everything it needs, is it possible it's going to die? Yeah. And if any of you guys are like me, the majority of your plants are going to die. No matter how hard you try to take care of them, they're going to die. Does that therefore mean you throw out all plants? Some people will say yes. I guess I asked that question, where's the joy in this? Like the best joy of a pessimist is to find out that the world is ruined. And then you can sit there and go, see, I knew it. That's the greatest joy. The greatest joy of the optimist is to be able to look at it and say, yeah, you know what? I believe the best in this one person, or I believe the best in this one group, or I believe the best in this one situation, and you know what? The best came out. That's dope. I asked that question about how pessimists see optimists, and going to what Beth said, like, do we have a choice of being a pessimist or an optimist? And I don't know. That's why I was kind of asking you so many of those follow-up questions, Angela, because I don't know, like, is pessimism or is optimism a choice? Like, can you just choose to see the world better? I mean, if you're just surrounded by constant negativity, constant war and death and all this stuff, I don't know if you can just make the choice to see positively. You can make a choice to look for the positive, but if the negative is so heavy and is so overwhelming, it's hard to ignore. And that's why I wonder, like, can you choose therefore to be an optimist, or is an optimist just something that you are? Like, I have a good friend. I refer to him as the eternal optimist, because he's completely optimistic about the world. He's completely optimistic about humanity. He loves humanity. He loves people. He doesn't really connect with them very well. He doesn't really relate with people. He walks around constantly feeling alienated and separated from humanity. He's an introvert. He's very intelligent, which probably is part of it, but he was also diagnosed with clinical depression when he was 12 years old. And this isn't like when you're diagnosed with clinical depression today, when like you just say, oh, I'm sad, and then your psychiatrist goes, oh, let's put you on meds because it's 2024. I'm talking, this goes back, he was 12 years old, like in the 90s, I think it was, when you really had to have some serious things going on before they would diagnose you with something like that. And when they diagnosed him, he said that his mom didn't want to put him on meds or anything like that, so they just like monitored him very closely. And so he grew up without being on anything like that, just kind of working through. And I think that the way that he kind of found himself working out of it was he's highly intelligent, and he kind of just put himself towards seeing the best in the world. And yeah, there's a choice aspect that's there. But it takes a lot of brain power to see the best in the world. And that doesn't mean that you ignore the negative. It means, again, like I just said, you see the best in it. Because that doesn't mean that there's anything, like for example, you can have a person who's really terrible, but there's a best aspect of them. It doesn't mean that they're all good, but you can look at them and find something good, and that one thing that's the most good, that one thing that's the most good is the best. So what do you emphasize in people? The best? Or do you focus on all the negative? What do you emphasize in the world? Do you emphasize the best? Or do you emphasize all the negative? Do you emphasize the worst? Because whatever it is that you're staring at, it stares back into you. And if you gaze long into an abyss, as Nietzsche says, the abyss also gazes back into you. Anything that you stare into, you become. So I guess there is a part of choice in that. What do you choose to stare into? Is there, can you stare into the darkest parts of humanity? Yeah, and it's interesting. It's really, really interesting. But is it good for you? Those are very different things. Stuff that's going to be interesting for you is not necessarily going to be good for you. And so I guess maybe to that degree, there is an option of being an optimist, because it doesn't mean that you ignore the bad. It just means that you focus on the good. And so, I mean, I think about even like this job here. I can choose to focus on people who are distractions and being annoying, who know better but are still doing it. Do I therefore then blast and say, oh, all students are like this just because we have 2 rude assholes in the room? Or do I look at the couple of students who are just doodling and have an AirPod in and completely ignoring what's being said and go, oh, all students are like this? No, because you can look at the world. And when I sit here and I look out here, I see the world. If you understand what I mean by that. Are there rude assholes in the world? Yes, you encounter them all the time. Is it a whole bunch? No, it only takes 2 to be a distraction and to not do what they're supposed to do, to derail everybody else who is. That's the person who like takes up 2 parking spaces, or the person who ignores the rules that then of course forces everybody else to compensate for it. And no one snowflake thinks it's responsible for the avalanche, but you get enough together and then you have a society that gets derailed. And no one thinks that they're responsible for it that way. You've got the people who are just, completely checked out of it. And it's like, why? Well, not to be a jerk, but we understand why, because you don't understand what's going on around you. And so it's easy to be distracted by shiny objects or loud noises or jump cuts, because it's difficult to focus on bigger things that are happening around you. And then you start to whittle it down, and then you see a few people who are probably going to make something. And I don't mean that nobody else can make anything. I'm not saying that anybody else is like lesser than, or you're not fully human, or that you're worth less or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when you walk around in the world, this is the breakdown that you see of society around you. So what do? Do I sit there and pull those few people aside and put them in one area and just do that? Or do you give the whole world an opportunity, because you just don't know? Because once in a while, you do come across that one who becomes something much greater than what anybody else would have expected. Now, having said that, I've been doing this a little while. How often am I surprised by people who make it and people who don't? It's been a long time since I've been surprised. But what I will say is, I graduated with a 1.8. I've got 2 bachelors, 2 masters, and a PhD. And if you go back and you ask my teachers when I was in school, who's gonna make it, who's not, I did have some who said, I think you're going to. And then of course other ones who were just like, no way. So there's a chance. And that goes back to the hope that Brian mentions. Optimism is a hope that things can be better. Is it an assertion that things are going to be? No, but they don't become better unless you give them an opportunity to become better. Plants don't grow unless you give them an opportunity to grow. If you put a plant in a room and then you make it all dark and you fill it with nothing but darkness and then it never grows, do we sit there and go, see, that's why I don't trust plants? No. If you put a plant in with plenty of sunlight and plenty of water and everything it needs, is it possible it's going to die? Yeah. And if any of you guys are like me, the majority of your plants are going to die. No matter how hard you try to take care of them, they're going to die. Does that therefore mean you throw out all plants? Some people will say yes. I guess I asked that question, where's the joy in this? Like, the best joy of a pessimist is to find out that the world is ruined. And then you can sit there and go, see, I knew it. That's the greatest joy. The greatest joy of the optimist is to be able to look at it and say, yeah, you know what? I believe the best in this one person, or I believe the best in this one group, or I believe the best in this one situation, and you know what? The best came out. That's dope. Having said that, as I've pointed out many times, and I will many more times, tell me if you've heard it before, life is suffering. There's also a great deal of suffering that goes along with the optimist, because you see the best, because not that you invent the best, you see the best. And you can look at it and say, man, what the world could be, what this person could be, what this situation could be, what this school could be, what this country could be, what this marker could be. Anything, man. And yet so few people reach that of what they could be, including the optimist who's looking at the world that way and hoping for the best. The pessimist walks around without that hope. And that's the suffering of the pessimist. The pessimist is the person who throws that bumper sticker in the car that says something like, life sucks and then you die. It's like, geez, but there's so much more in between, man. And if you focus on just those parts, those are the parts that stand out to you. And yeah, that when you get to beg that question, then why bother? And so I wonder oftentimes if there's just like a hurt hope that's in the pessimist, where the pessimist is sitting there going, the world's terrible. You know what I mean? Like they're hoping to see something that contradicts that. Yeah, it's terrible. Looking around, hoping that there's something that's good that can prove them wrong. And even if they see it, they still might say, it still sucks. Then they walk away, and when no one's looking, they smile. I wonder. I don't know. But that's why I put this thing in quotation marks. There is an instinct for survival. And the instinct for survival, by the way, is interesting because it pushes you towards pessimism. Because why is it that a person would see things negatively? Because pessimism keeps you alive. Don't go out there. Why not? Because there's saber-toothed tigers outside that cave. The pessimist is like, I'm going to get eaten if I go out there. Yeah, the world's a rough place. Going back 100,000 years, 200,000 years, whatever. And then the optimist is the person who goes, yeah, my whole family got eaten by saber-toothed tigers. Doesn't mean I'm going to, though. And then they venture out. And that's why I put survival here in quotation marks, because for that person, survival is encountering life, having a reason to live, having a meaning, having a purpose. What's the meaning and the purpose of living if you're not really living, you're not enjoying it? And then, of course, you can't enjoy it unless you're alive. So, I don't know, should people be optimists or pessimists? And the answer to that question, like most questions, is probably yes. It's probably yes. We need optimists. We need pessimists. We need everything in between. And so, but how you fit into that equation, it might be a matter of choice to figure out what you're going to focus on. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?